Welcome back to Design to Thrive. We have an amazing guest. Her name is Melissa from Yoga Mastery Institute. Welcome, Melissa. How are you?
I'm great, Naka. How are you?
Awesome. I'm doing well, thank you. Thank you for asking. So, Melissa, let's get to it. Tell us the story behind Yoga Mastery Institute and how did it all
Well, first of
begin?
all, let me thank you for inviting me on. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and to talk to your audience a little bit about what I'm doing. My business is called Yoga Mastery Institute. We often refer to it as YMI, which conveniently speaks to a lot of what we're doing, answering that question, why am I? So I'll tell you a bit more about that as we go. What YMI is, at its core, is a stress reduction program. I sometimes think of it as a stress elimination program, a stress management program. So what we know, and every business owner and person out, every human, let's just go with that. Every human out there knows and is experiencing on a day-to-day basis some kind of, we often talk about it as like a running level of low grade stress, right? So we experience high moments of stress and times when things are not as stressful and are happy, but it seems like every day in our lives, there's this kind of constant level of anxiety about work or family or relationships or whatever. And we don't get taught effective ways to deal with it. And we have a whole world of industries and services and methodologies out there to try to help people address this stress problem, this anxiety problem. It includes things like meditation apps, the opportunity for people to learn how to sit down and try to calm their minds. It includes things like yoga, which we'll get into a bit more in a minute. And it includes things like therapy, right? Going to talk to somebody and hearing other ways to think about problems that you have or are carrying around in your mind. The challenge is that with the existence of all these things in their different separate places, we get little snippets of improvement in our stress, but rarely do we get access to a way to have sustained changes in the way we experience and engage with our day-to-day life. So let me kind of back up a little bit and tell you a little bit about where this all comes from. So I've been the owner of a yoga studio that offers what I would call traditional fitness yoga for 13 years. And we've done a lot of wonderful things. We've had a lot of very familiar styles of yoga that we've been offering there, a great audience of people who love to come and practice. And during my course of ownership of that studio, I would see these interesting things happen. People would come in, start taking class, mostly because they thought they wanted to be more flexible, right? They thought that yoga was a good idea for them, for their bodies physically. So they would come in and then some time would go by. If they enjoyed it, if they stayed with it, if they didn't get sort of scared off or otherwise, intimidated by it, they would come to me. I had one person in particular, a guy who's suffered from Parkinson's disease. And he came into me after about a couple of years of doing yoga. And he said to me, I know what you're doing here. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, this isn't about physical. He says, you're trying to change minds. And I said, you're right, right? So what he was talking about is that yoga has this unique capacity to help people slow down, to help people start to feel a little differently in their bodies. And this is true of most all kinds of yoga, particularly if you have good teachers who speak to some of the philosophical ideas and so forth. But even just the nature of the movement, which is it's a type of movement where you're compressing and elevating heart rate and then relaxing and elevating and relaxing. And that very specific nature of the movement helps to calm the nervous system. And over time, people feel the longer term impacts of that. What was exciting about what he was saying was like, yes, that's right. There are cool things that are happening here in this yoga studio. But what I was wondering was, how do I accelerate that process for people? Some people don't make it as far as 2 years to get that experience, right? Many people don't show up at all because they're super intimidated by the flexible people in the front of the room and they think they can't do what needs to be done to get them the benefits they're looking for. So 2 years ago, I embarked on a journey to try to solve that problem. How do I accelerate the process from the physical to the mental transformation that was happening in that practice? It was inspired by the fact that I had some competition opening up in my area that was taking away students, and I was looking for new ways to engage more of an audience. So I began this exercise of looking at ways to make yoga more accessible, first of all, so at the physical practice level, but also to bring in components of yoga that create more rapid transformation, specifically the mental meditation piece and what we call mindfulness training. So learning how to be more aware of the way you are thinking and interacting with your thoughts and with your emotions. So I looked at all this and spent about a year on it and then crafted a program that we launched here at the studio just for individual consumers. And what we did was we tested the program. I should back up. A core component of the program was to go from what you would think of as traditional yoga classes, where you walk in and the teacher tells you what to do, you follow along, and then you leave at the end. And rarely in those formats is there any kind of specific guidance or instruction to any individual, right? Everyone is largely left alone on their own to follow along. So what I did in the crafting of the program was to look at sports and other examples, particularly martial arts and dance, where you learn in a leveled manner, right? You start, in the example of martial arts, you start at a white belt, right? And you begin to learn and progress over time through belt levels. So we took that idea and applied it to the physical learning of yoga. And we created something called a ribbons structure. So we have a white ribbon level, and we progress all the way up through an indigo or purple ribbon level. So 7 levels of learning. And then we brought in meditation and we brought in mindfulness training as well. And we combined all that together in a 75-minute class. Then I brought 150 people in the room, not the room at one time, but in the program, and had them work through it. And what we did was test and assess their flexibility, balance, and strength, so physical attributes at the beginning, as well as their perceived stress level at the beginning. So we used a very standardized stress test, which is called the Perceived Stress Scale. It's been run by the American Psychology Association for decades. And it's a simple 10-question test and then places people in a high, medium, low stress category. So we did this assessment of everybody. We ran 8 lessons over the course of 4 weeks. And at the end, we assessed them again on the same characteristics: flexibility, balance, strength, and their perceived stress level. And the fascinating thing about it was that in addition to improvements across all physical fronts very rapidly, which was not terribly surprising, every person improved on flexibility, balance, and strength. What was really fascinating was what happened with the stress levels. So we went from having about 75% of the people participating at the beginning at high to medium stress levels. And at the end of the program, 94% were medium to low stress. So a rapid shift in stress. And then when we spoke to many of them afterward, many weeks and months later, they were saying that they felt that these things that they had learned were helping them on an ongoing basis, right? So this is a long way of telling you that what came out of that was 2 really exciting things that we're doing. We're doing taking this program that is a 4-week, 8-lesson program to businesses, going on site to companies to help them with the employee stress management problem that exists. It's persistent throughout the world, certainly in the US, certainly in the US. So we can talk to you a bit more about that. And then we're also bringing it to individuals inside the yoga studio where we started it. And it allows people who wish to not only do the first 4 weeks, 8 lessons to learn, but to continue on and continue to grow their physical and mental training over years in the program. So that was a very long explanation of what I'm doing. Does that help you understand a bit about why am I?
Of course, yes. So, Melissa, what was the moment you knew that this is more than just a passion project?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. I mean, in many ways, yoga had always been a passion for me. The reason I bought the yoga studio, I didn't start it from the beginning. The studio that I own, I bought from an existing owner. I bought it because I was an annual member, and I used to joke that this was the way that I could get a free annual membership was if I owned the studio. But it was a passion to do yoga. But one of the things that happened along the way was that I was exploring my own mental health, my own happiness, frustration, anxiety, things that I was dealing with. In addition to owning the yoga studio, I also worked a day job. I worked for many years in tech marketing for large companies. And it was a very stressful job. And I was getting to the place where I just didn't feel like I could handle it anymore. And I have a ton of friends who are in this exact same place. They're just at their wits' end, right? It's exhausting. It's frustrating. They live in a lot of fear. What's going to happen? Am I going to do well at the presentation tomorrow? And like everything is just this kind of state of perpetual anxiety, right? And I got to the place where I was so fed up with it. Kind of joke around about, you hear this a lot in the world I'm in. You get sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? I can't take this anymore. And that and the research and work I had been doing in my own studies for years about how to get happy, how to stay happy, plus owning the yoga business led me to the crafting of this. And I was like, this is what I got to do with my life. I need to, if I can help solve my own unhappiness and frustration and anxiety problem, I owe it to the world to take it to other people. That sounds a bit pretentious, but I think everyone needs to know that there's a way to change what's going on up in here so that you can live in a much happier state all the time.
Awesome. So, Melissa, how has your vision for the Institute evolved since you first started?
Yeah. Initially, it started as a way to try to make yoga, the physical practice, accessible to more people. The evolution is really in the story that I articulated at the beginning, which was we crafted something, developed a way to do it, tested it, tried it, said, okay, well, maybe that isn't going to work. We did a lot of iterating on the structure, the format, the content. And that was super challenging, right? The exercise of sticking with it when you're feeling like, you know, people don't get this or they don't want it or I'm not explaining it the right way. So it evolved from being here's an extra way to do yoga as a side offering to here's a full blown program that starts with this point and evolves, works all the way through to this point, and the outcomes and measurable results are this and this. That's a huge difference from just being another yoga class, right?
Okay, so what sets Yoga Mastery Institute apart from other yoga classes, schools, studios, or online platforms?
Well, the short answer is everything. I mean, nobody's doing what we're doing. So I say that, I should be clear. There's some interesting things that are starting to happen in the world of fitness that is getting a bit more beginner oriented, a bit more learning oriented. And I have heard of another yoga studio in New York, I think, that is doing something that hints at what we're doing. But the whole concept of taking martial arts as a structure and placing it on top of yoga. I was a ballet student as a kid. I loved all the levels of learning there. Same concept applies here too, right? So you start with the basic forms in martial arts, the basic plies and tendus if you're in a ballet, right? And then you level up, level up, level up, and you have to know the basics in order to be able to progress. Now, there's a world of one of the original, by which I mean 100 years, as opposed to yoga, which is 3,000 years old. But there's a very widely known form of yoga called Ashtanga, which actually has 6 levels of learning in it, and it's a wonderfully challenging practice. It's very physical. The way it's taught is also kind of like martial arts in the sense that you learn the first series, and you're not even shown the second series until you've mastered the first series. Like the teacher doesn't even hint at what's to come until you have mastered the first one. And one of the things that we know about this is that in fact, I think the creators, people will say that there are only 3 or 4 people who've ever made it all the way up to the 5th or 6th level in Ashtanga, right? So I'm not seeking to do that. I'm seeking to make it accessible so that people can progress. And so by creating levels that is similar to that looks like a bit more like something familiar like martial arts, people get the chance to feel, experience, see their own progress. And what's really exciting about it is that it's really about taking it away for yourself, right? Because the whole idea of the stress reduction, the mental health improvement, is that you want it to work off the mat, not just on the mat. Right? You want to be able to be happy outside of the yoga studio, not just in the yoga studio. And yoga is, in fact, a practice that's designed to be a personal practice. It's not, despite the fact that here in the West we do yoga in studios in a paid environment, it's actually intended to be a personal practice program. You're supposed to learn it and then be able to practice it wherever you are on your own, which includes meditation, which includes the way you think and show up in the world. So we're trying to help people learn things in a way that they can embody them. They can go away and meditate. They can go away and practice the mindfulness techniques in their relationships outside of the studio. And they could even take their mat with them wherever they go and practice on their own. So that's very unique as well, is giving somebody something to take with them, as opposed to making sure that you come back and pay another $10 to come to class, right?
Okay. So can you break down your core offerings? Are you more focused on in-person, online, certifications, or a mix?
Yeah, so we are really, the primary focus is the B2B business, right? So well, it's two businesses. We have a business that we take the stress management program to businesses. We go on site to them, to their teams, and run an 8-lesson program. In the studio, which is here where we are in Park City, Utah, we offer it for individuals, and we also kind of use it as our R&D center for how we learn and grow and practice. And so it's offered both as a business program and a personal learning training program in our studio. We don't do much online. So when the world went to online only back in 2020, we did immediately start offering classes remotely, like many studios did. And some studios, I believe, have continued to do that as a way to offer that kind of remote access. Generally speaking, that doesn't work for this kind of training. And that's maybe one of the most important things to realize, I think. It's that in order for you to get better at how to move your body in the way that's best for you, it's really essential that I, or the instructor, is able to guide you. This is where your hands go. This is where your knees should be when we're in tabletop. This is how your shoulders should come down your back. Those little in-person things make a huge difference physically. And most importantly, at the end of every class is a 15-minute discussion on a mindfulness topic. The ability to engage with 5, 6, 10, 15 other people in a room about a topic. Magic happens when you're in the same space. As we've all learned, Zoom is great, but at some point, you and I will never connect the way we would if we were in the same room. So, I hope we get to meet face to face someday, but more importantly, this business runs on that kind of a in-person experience. Eventually, we may offer some remote ongoing learning. So if you go through the program, like a business, I've had some businesses start to ask me about this. Great, we've run this program. It's fantastic. Now some people would like to continue to learn. What could they do? We may be able to offer some ongoing remote learning things for people, but truly the value and the transformative nature of it shows up when we're all face to face.
Perfect. So let's dive into the day-to-day challenges that you face. What's one of the biggest operational challenges you face day to day?
Yeah, I mean, the wonderful thing about our business is that it's a people-to-people connection business. So as an operation, it's not overly challenging, I would say. We face sales challenges the way anybody else does. How do we get the word out? So maybe our challenges are less about operations and more about marketing and sales, right? Because what we're doing is really changing the way people think about yoga. Most people have a very fixed idea of what yoga is and or should be. And when I try to tell them, no, it's going to be 75 minutes and we're going to stop and we're going to spend some time figuring out how to do this thing. We're not just going to keep going and let you flounder along in the back of the room. And so some people just don't want that. People are, no, that's not why I'm coming. I just want to move. I just want to be told what to do and then I'm going to leave. That's fine, right? But often it's because they don't know. And so we need to help them experience it. So helping people understand the distinction and that the idea of learning is elemental to yoga the same way it's elemental to any sport, the same way it's elemental to any language learning. Anything you do requires learning, which means you start at the beginning and you progress. And giving people the awareness that that applies here too, um, is probably our biggest challenge.
Okay. And in an industry that's increasingly digital, how do you remain valuable in person?
Yeah, I think you'd asked a bit about this. I think that yoga has attempted to be digital, right? There are a number of successful Instagram yoga teachers and others who try to offer again classes and ways of learning yoga. But again, what I like to be really clear about is while yoga, the movement of yoga, is very much what we're doing. Really, the heart of this is about the mental health, stress management, stress reduction, happiness experience, which is about changing what's going on up here, which means that, so to be even more specific about what we're doing, the program has three pieces. We first train the mind. We train the mind through meditation, and what we're trying to do is teach you how to keep your mind, help you teach your mind how to be focused, how to remain in one place for a little period of time. It's very difficult. So it's work we all benefit from. Right? The second thing we're doing is calming the nervous system, as in, you may have heard of something called the autonomic nervous system, which has got two parts: the fight or flight system, which helps you run from the saber-toothed tiger, and the rest or digest system, which helps things calm down, relax. To get into a calm, relaxed state, you need to do movement, and movement of a specific kind, namely movement that alternates between heart rate raising and relaxation, stress and release, work and relaxation. And that this type of yoga movement does that specifically, which means that after you've taught the mind to focus and you've calmed the nervous system, now my mind is more open to hearing new ideas and to thinking about things in a different way. And it's the combination of those three things that results in people leaving the yoga space or the business meeting that we run this in with a changed attitude about how to engage with their partner, how to think about what their boss just said to them, how to address the guy who just cut them off in the traffic circle, right? So we walk around in this state of anxiety and concern and stress most of our lives without knowledge of how to, that we have the control over how to solve it. We just don't know it. And so what we're doing is teaching people, we're accelerating that whole mental transformation by doing these three things and bringing it together in a way that allows people to feel a sense of control over their mind and their stress and their anxiety all the time outside of the yoga studios. So, I think the relevance here is about this question of addressing stress. It isn't so digital, right? So I said that a number of people are doing things online digitally and they're teaching yoga, and that's great. But we're going so far beyond that, that the relevance intention here is, the relevance opportunity is about addressing a problem that is very difficult to address via digital training. It has to be done face to face.
Okay. So we're going to dive into AI and also the future with AI. We're
Mhm.
hearing a lot about AI transforming industries. How do you see AI fitting into the future of Yoga Mastery Institute?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about how AI has helped us do some of our marketing efforts. One of the greatest things about what's happening with things like ChatGPT is the ability to access databases of information, right? Namely, what kind of companies are interested in this kind of stuff, what kind of companies, how much money is being spent on mental health and wellness around the country. And maybe even more particularly, there's a wide array of a vast number of studies that speak to the science behind what we're doing, how movement and meditation and mindfulness go together to create transformation for people. And so we really use AI to help identify useful marketing information. We use it to help craft some of the things that we put out to the world so that we can make it accessible and understandable for people. But I think at some point, as we gather much more data about individual participation in this program and the stress levels, and we'll be able to get much more refined with our insights and how we're helping people. And I'm sure that will begin to yield some very useful analyses. At the moment, we're still fairly nascent, so that isn't readily available to us yet. But it can definitely happen in the future.
Now, looking 3 to 5 years out, what's your dream vision for how tech will help scale or enhance what you do?
In the same vein, I think tech is really going to be the way that we will dig deeper into the data that we're gathering. We'll use it to potentially allow other people access to this information where they are. But, every fiber of my being at the moment fights against the idea of doing this remotely in any way. I just don't think the impact is the same. If you go online and take a yoga class and there's no teacher there to tell you, no, you really do need to move your feet up 6 inches in order to change the angle of your hips, in order to lengthen your spine, in order to take the weight out of your hands and shoulders and bring it back into your feet and your legs. If no one's there to tell you that because they can't see through the camera what you're doing, you'll just practice and learn something incorrectly. I can help with We can do meditation remotely. That's nice. We can do even group discussions remotely. Though, again, I think the impact of a group discussion face to face is much greater than when it's done remotely. But ultimately, our program is about the combination of all three things. And that's when the magic happens. So, as far as tech from a remote distance learning scalability perspective, I see that as something that can help us after people have done the main program. People can then continue on with their practice that way. But really, what I want to do is come with me, my team, other trained leaders. We'll train more trainers around the country so that people can experience face to face, because the world needs more face to face. We need more connection. We need less tech and more analog. That's my opinion.
Okay, that's great. So, Melissa, where can people connect with you or get involved with Yoga Mastery Institute right now?
Thank you. So you can, if you're a business looking for a stress management program, which will not be online, but we will come and run it for you. You go to a website that is YMI, the initials YMIstressed.com. So YMIstressed.com. If you are anywhere near Park City, Utah, and you would like to come take a class and see what it's all about, you could come in person to the studio, and that's at yogamasteryinstitute.com.
So, final question. What's lighting you up most about the next chapter of your journey?
Well, the most exciting thing is to be able to share the rapid transformational capability of this program with many more people. So I'm looking forward to doing more speaking like this to help people see that there's this way to bring together the amazing work that's been done by so many others. So I've not invented anything new. Meditation is certainly not a new practice. Yoga is certainly not a new practice. Mindfulness training is not something I have invented. What I have created is a way to bring all three of those things together in an accessible way, which, as I've learned in doing it, a little goes a long way. So a little bit of meditation with a little bit of movement and a little bit of mindfulness training results in very rapid transformation. So what we want to be able to do is take that to many more people. So I'm super excited about talking about how the combination of these three things really work. So sharing that with people in more environments like this one, as well as coming out to more businesses and bringing that program so that they can see how their employees will begin to change. Teams begin to work better. Creativity begins to flow. People stop worrying about what everyone thinks about me, and instead get focused on how to work together and craft and create and grow. So these kinds of things are happening as a function of people stepping out of the stress in their minds and moving into working together as teams. So there's so much potential and excitement around this that, yeah, I can't wait to tell more people about it.
Awesome. Well, that brings a close to Design and Thrive. That's our episode with Melissa. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you so much, Naka. I appreciate you reaching out.